Hey, what is happening, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a brand new episode of Definitive Discussion Rebooted, where I have phenomenal individuals from all over the place around the internet, YouTube, the games industry, all different types of places, and I bring them on to the show to talk about a bunch of different things. I hope you guys have been enjoying all the episodes I have here on a playlist on the YouTube channel. There's a lot of great guests that if you haven't listened to their conversations yet, you really should do so. In addition to all the exclusive content that's over on my Patreon page. We do EX mode with every single guest that comes up on here, and we have bonus conversations for everybody that supports the channel over on Patreon. But before we get into any of that stuff, I want to introduce my guest. I have Trevor Lowe, who's one part of Lowe Bros Studios, who has been working on IndiePogo, a nice fun indie game that's got a little bit of Smash Brothers injected into it with some indie love and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. So Trevor, we met at Gaku Bash. What's going on? How you been?
Hey, it's good to be here, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Again, I've been busy. I know we were talking a little bit before we started recording. I've been a little busy doing some stuff out here. But again, we finally got to meet in person at Gaku Bash, which happened previous weekend at the time that we're recording this. You guys were showing off your game. You know, people were playing it. You guys had tournaments there, which was really fun. We're going to get into all that stuff. But I mean, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was actually pretty unique. We've taken IndiePogo to a few conventions now. And one of the highlights for me is actually the fact that we had an in-person tournament. Our IndiePogo community on Discord we do monthly tournaments, but also sometimes between the month we'll do a couple online tournaments as well. But it was just really cool seeing people line up and watching the competition and scoping it out and having money prizes supplied by the convention. So that was just a really cool experience for us. But in general, it was a little smaller, it was an intimate affair, but I really enjoyed it because you get to have a lot more time with the fans who are coming up and interacting with the game for the first time and speaking with the other developers in depth about their experiences. So yeah, it was really cool.
That's good. And I know, I'm pretty sure, I think you told me or somebody else told me that you guys have gone to events like PAX and stuff and shown off the game, correct? Or like, besides like what we saw at Gaku Bash.
Yeah, so some of my teammates have been to PAX. We've not actually taken IndiePogo to PAX, but that's one of our goals for sure. Yeah, it's mostly been stuff here in Florida.
Okay, so yeah, so eventually I'm pretty sure you guys are going to do that because, again, from the response that I saw, from people that were playing the game and looking at the game, it was genuinely positive. A lot of people seem very excited about it. Again, it has that same pull of like a Super Smash Brothers with like the different characters that are all involved. Again, you guys have a lot of collaboration between other studios where their characters could appear in the game, which I thought was really cool. Again, I saw a couple of my favorites in there, including Lilac from Freedom Planet, Shovel Knight. There's a lot of cool ones in there. So that charm and stuff and that pull for everybody is still there. I mean, is there any specific things that, besides the characters and besides, some of the chaotic gameplay that I saw that really got people excited about it when they were first seeing your game?
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you clarify the question?
So besides like the idea of like different types of characters appearing in your game, and besides like, the 4-player madness or just like the competitiveness of it, like what other aspects of really...
the appeal?
Yeah, like was the other like type of thing that really appeals to people when they first look at your game and be like, oh, that's pretty cool?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing, and I hope so because I'm the pixel artist, but I think the first thing is just the bright colors and the pixel art. I'm the pixel artist on the project, so everything that you saw there was done by my hand. I'm hoping that when someone walks into the convention hall, it kind of catches their eye, just the bouncy gameplay and the bright colors. But also, I don't know, I think there's something to be said about, especially being at a convention, seeing other people standing there playing and having a good time. And just, it's very easy to walk up and find someone to play against because they're all right there in person. It being primarily a local multiplayer game. We have online as well. But I think there's something really important about that you can kind of just walk up and enjoy the game. And it's simple enough, I feel like, to understand that, especially if you've played Smash Bros., you kind of get a good feel for what the mechanics are, even though we actually started in a very different place. It started as an auto-jumping arcade-y style game that was multiplayer and became more and more like Smash Bros. As we developed it. We're talking about, this feels like it needs an air jump. Cool, add air jumps. Oh, it feels like we need some of these Smash Bros. Style attacks with specials and melees. Cool, let's do that. Let's add dodging, etc., etc. So it actually started in a place where it's very unique from Smash Bros. And became more like it. And I think that's part of the reason why we're able to stand out. People don't really call us a Smash clone, which I think is a good thing. We can't really compete directly with Smash Bros. And I wouldn't want to try to. You're not going to make a better game than Sakurai can make with Smash Bros.
True.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, though. I think that's technically one is a compliment because I think that in this context, especially with the response that I saw with it, it's good to be, at least, put in the same conversation as a game like that. Again, for various
Mhm.
different reasons, specifically with characters or just the colorful nature of it and
Sure.
things like that. But when you guys were first coming up with the concept of the game or even just throughout its development, what was really the first and foremost thing on your guys' plate or at least on your guys' agenda? Was it more the competitiveness or the fun factor of it?
Oh, absolutely, is the fun factor. So I have a master's in game design, and something that I learned is it's called the game design onion, right? Where you start with the very core, whatever the very simplest mechanic is going to be, and you don't move on to the next layer of game development until that core is 100% solid.
Got to finish the
So for
first one.
us, I'm sorry.
I say you got to finish the first one before you move on.
Right, exactly. Because yeah, essentially, if you move on too early into other features, you might have to do rework, and then you've got features dependent on features, and then things start to collapse, right? But for us, it was the auto jumping. We made sure that the physics of the auto jumping, the way you land and have the little squish, visual effects that come off with the smoke when you land and when you jump off the ground, all that feels good. And then the next step was, all right, what happens when I jump on someone else? What happens to them? They go into knockback or they go into a face down state, and just really developing it from there. So it was really important to us that we focus on the intimate details of every interaction, and we really just built it up from there, from a place where it was just a tiny little prototype to now I believe we have 16 playable characters and 13 stages with more content coming on the way. So yeah, it's been a really fun journey.
That's pretty cool. So another thing I also want to ask about, again, from what I saw when I saw it at Gaku Bash, and again, I got to play, I was part of a couple of the tournaments that you guys hosted there. You guys also cater a little bit to that competitive community with certain little like aspects and details here and there. For example, for me, one of the things I know is like when during stage selection, like you guys have this little thing where, one player could choose a certain stage to be banned and another player chooses like another stage or two to be banned. And then eventually you guys get to that point where you guys cumulatively select on which stage is going to be played on. Again, for that tournament style type of play. And that's something I've yet to see in a Smash Brothers or any of like, games that are similar to that style of gameplay. I mean, really, was that something like you guys thought of like, again, throughout the process, or was that something that came up later on, or were there other things that maybe, again, you probably borrowed from like other competitive gaming communities to kind of implement into IndiePogo?
Yeah, it's funny because that feature actually, what you're referring to is the tournament mode, where it's specifically, it tells you that there are certain stages that are not legal, which has been defined by our community. But then, yeah, the players are able to ban whichever stages that they don't want to play on. That was something that I'm not sure if that appears in other fighting games, indie fighting games.
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. Again, not in Smash Bros. I don't see that in Street Fighter. I don't see that in Tech. I don't see it in a lot of like the really big competitive games and the names that you would know of off the top of your head.
Yeah, if there is one, I probably should know it. But no, we kind of just borrowed that from the Smash community, the way that they actually do bans, like stage bans in tournaments. And that was actually our first post-launch feature because it took me by surprise. When we launched, we had a fairly large community, right? Not large, but sizable community right from the start because we did a Kickstarter. We had been, kind of garnering a community. But right from the get-go, I think it was probably day 2 or 3, they decided, hey, we're going to do an online tournament. And it was a little messy, and I said, okay, well, I think we can help them out. We'll make this quick mode, spend a week or two getting it out there. And yeah, it's funny to me because we weren't really sure going into the launch whether or not we were going to be viewed more as a party game or more as a competitive game.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it's actually really interesting because we're able to cater to both. And I think that's something that Smash Bros. Does really well, right? The whole party versus competitive. And I really want to take that further where we focus on features that people who are in it for the competitive play. And it's funny, a lot of people look at IndiePogo who've never played it and think, oh, this could be competitive because it's got the auto jumping. But surprisingly, it actually can be. And so I think that's what takes people by surprise. But anyway, one of our goals moving forward is definitely to cater both to the casuals and the competitive scene. I think both of those are very valuable perspectives.
Yeah, and I think, again, I saw it firsthand, with some of the reactions and, again, getting hands-on time with it. Just seeing people and their reactions, not only just to getting really competitive with the game when you guys are doing your tournament, but even just the four-player fun factor with it, just people just diving into it. People that weren't really competitive like that were probably just, like, lingering around Gaku Bash, getting to sit down and actually play it. Again, it had that same type of spark that you saw in all these other games that we mentioned. So tell me a little bit about, obviously, the community that you guys have kind of grown up with, or, have kind of, fostered at this point with the release of the game. game. I mean, you guys, at least in this case, you have cited, there's been a lot of feedback on various different aspects about the game. Obviously the level select type of thing we were talking about before, and I'm pretty sure other aspects that are important and key to the game as well. I mean, besides the obvious that community feedback is great feedback, good and bad and stuff. I mean, was that really like also another focus as you guys were really kind of developing this game, or was that something that really at some point kind of you shifted gears a little bit and that really contributed to what this game ended up becoming?
Oh boy. I mean, yeah, it's a lot. That's a loaded question, right? It's interesting because we didn't take IndiePogo to conventions until probably 3-ish years into development, and we were in development for about 5 years when we actually launched.
About half a decade, so roughly.
I'm sorry?
I said about half a decade that you guys were in development before release.
Yeah.
So
well, we've also been launched for a full year now, and so well, we can get into that. But anyway, yeah. So we took IndiePogo into a convention. I think it was Orlando IX for the first time, and we had no idea what to expect. We didn't know if people were going to hate it or look at it and be confused or play one match and say, "Oh, cool," and walk away. And so I think that was kind of our first interaction with player feedback, right? Is seeing that, oh, okay, this is a game that people can enjoy. And that's obviously super important to us. But also, right from the get-go, we can kind of understand what mechanics or what things that we're showing on screen or not showing on screen are people not quite understanding, and use that feedback to kind of improve communication within the game. And then over time, it really developed as far as like building a Twitter fan base. And then when we did the Kickstarter, I think that was where things really started to come together, because like we definitely had fans, I believe, as we were in development, because we were showing off gameplay footage and animated GIFs and stuff. But around the Kickstarter time is when it all started to come together and people started to interact with each other. Someone made a Discord for IndiePogo, and I kind of jumped in there and said, "Hey, this is cool. There's a Discord.
Let's make this work."
I was like, I'll just become the owner if no one, if you guys don't care, we'll make this the official server. So there was actually a server before I was even involved, so that was really cool.
That's dope.
But it's been really good because I've been able to kind of customize that server with a lot of our own art assets and then advertise it on all of our own social media, and it's really become a big hub. I'm not sure exactly how many we've got in there right now. I know it's over 1,000 people. We've got a lot of active users, but it's interesting because we've definitely got fans who play it they study it in very close detail.
They're getting frame data. They're getting frame data guides now.
Oh,
that's the level we're hitting.
and recording frame data and posting it, and that's fine. Like we have a training mode where you can view all the hitbox and stuff. So we don't have a problem with that. But it's just interesting because there's obviously like good and bad to having a fan base. Not bad. I shouldn't say bad. Easy and challenging parts of having a fan base that we're so dedicated, right?
Ebbs and flows, basically.
Yeah, it's nice knowing that when we push an update, that there are going to be plenty of people who would get super excited, like, wow, I can't wait to play the game, because I get to view it through a new lens because there's a whole bunch of new stuff, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, when you don't have the updates flowing constantly, it can become difficult to manage the community from the perspective of, like, these people are waiting patiently, and sorry, game development takes a while. But our thing is we want to make sure that whatever we push out is quality, and sometimes quality takes a while, and that can be challenging to balance at times.
Was there one thing you could think of about the game, since you guys released up till now, that fundamentally changed based on community feedback? Like something that like started off one way and then ended up being completely different or even irrecognizable at some point?
Yes, and ironically enough, it's something that no one actually suggested. So what we noticed is about, I'm going to say, somewhere between the 3 to 5 month mark, we started to notice players burning out a lot, right? In other words, they played and played and played to a point where they've absorbed just about everything there was, and they wanted more, and I don't think they really realized why they were getting so frustrated with the game, even though the game wasn't super buggy. It was relatively balanced, and what we realized was our combat was a little bit more shallow than what we would have liked. When we first launched, we actually didn't have the melee attacks. So if you recall, we have melees and special attacks. The game only had the special attacks, which we wanted to focus on special attacks because that's what makes characters super unique amongst each other on the roster. But what we found is that the melee attacks, when we started playing around with that, really added like combos into the game a lot more than what it had before. It was much more about spacing and trying to predict your opponent's movements, but adding in the melee attacks really helped kind of, again, add the combos and just add a whole lot more depth to the combat. Oh, and also side specials. We didn't have side specials as well. It was just up, neutral, down, and grounded charge. And so adding it, we essentially doubled the moveset pool for every character in the game all at once. And so that's when we found out how a community can get when you don't push updates, semi-frequently. But I think they understand now the reason why that update took so long is because we basically overhauled our entire combat scenario, and it definitely paid off. We have, I would say, a much more solid game, and a lot of people are really excited because the characters that they know and love changed, but it didn't destroy the way that they played before. It just added new possibilities, and so I definitely think that was a positive change based on feedback that wasn't super direct, but it was absolutely present because we were paying attention to it.
Yeah, you guys had a lot of stuff in there. Again, based on what I saw, after all this different type of stuff, like it was very ambitious, at least, coming off those first impressions when I got to see it and such.
Sure.
Do you feel like, eventually even more so, and again, this might seem like an obvious question, as more updates, you guys start to work on other stuff, do you feel like you're going to get that type of change ever again at some point when you continue to update more and more stuff with the games? I mean, obviously, maybe not triple or quadruple the movesets of characters, but maybe in other things here and there.
Definitely not that big. I mean, we definitely have other features planned. Currently, right now, we're working on some new features that we haven't really talked about that I'll give you a little sneak peek about. It's more expression when you go online. So right now, for example, we've got a taunt system, right, where if you attack someone within a certain window, you can actually throw out a taunt. You might not have actually seen that at the convention. We didn't talk about that a whole lot. So you can equip specific taunts to your profile. And so just new ways to express yourself when going online, right? Because that's something that we think is kind of important. I'm sorry, I forgot what the question was. I probably went off there.
Let me ask you this then. It's kind of like an offshoot of that, because I think it's also very interesting because we see, Nintendo kind of tackle this a little bit with Smash Ultimate now. Because obviously going online, the community could sometimes feel a little bit different than playing offline and meeting people in person. The internet's a wild place out here. Did you guys ever worry about, when coming up with stuff like that, or even in the process of doing things like that, that maybe that would change, for better or worse, what the online experience would actually be?
No. I mean, online is super important for us because we're only on Steam right now, and I don't think that anyone who plays on PC, or rather, I don't think that there are as many players on PC who say, "Oh, cool, I found this fighting game. Let's all sit in front of my PC, plug in our controllers, and play it here." Right? Yeah. I think our core demographic is definitely going to be on consoles like Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, Xbox. And obviously, we're looking into ports of that. I don't have any news that I can talk about at this time about that. But that's something that we are aware of, the fact that our game is going to be better situated on those consoles just due to the nature of what our game is, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, I really enjoy developing for PC because I can instantly push out updates and not have to worry about approval from a third-party platform. I can get super quick bug testing and feedback on new mechanics. And so there's definitely differences between the different platforms. And when it comes to PC, having that online there was obviously super important for developing a community and just giving players a way to find each other if they don't have someone at home.
True. And I feel like, again, eventually when me and you probably talk again down the line in the future, like we'll probably have a different conversation about that, as, more updates and more stuff gets released or talked about, from you guys about IndiePogo. But I'd be remiss, obviously, if I didn't end this conversation without talking about, obviously, characters, which is, again, a huge part of IndiePogo. Again, lots of the thing that a lot of fans, both in and out of your community, are pretty much, very excited about. I saw a lot of, fun indie characters and cameos and stuff. Again, I love Freedom Planet, so I saw Lilac there. I love Shovel Knight. Was it Downwell? The list goes on. I was curious to know because, again, not all the characters I saw on the roster were ones that I recognized. There's some, was it original characters that you guys created in there, or is it all pulled from different various indie games?
No, so every character there is actually from an existing indie game, and there are two sides to that coin, right? So the first is obviously we need to have the more well-known indie characters to help us carry indie crossover brand. So I absolutely will be pursuing more of those, from here on out. We've got 5 DLC characters who are pretty well known, that we've already kind of announced that will be coming in the unannounced future. We've got Octodad, Gunvolt, a character from Awesome Knots. I'm trying to think, there are 2 more. Kick from Dive Kick, and who's the last one I'm forgetting? Oh, Dust.
Dust. I can't wait for that because I'm a big Dust
fan.
Yeah.
And then obviously that after that, I think we'll continue to pursue new opportunities, right? And you might have seen the Bulletkin from Enter the Gungeon and Diogenes from Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. Those are also 2 big games that we recently added in, just probably within the last month-ish. I guess it's probably been a month and a half now. Yeah, so no, I mean, we're constantly adding new characters, but when it comes to characters who are lesser known, part of it is that, we had to start somewhere, right? We were a new-ish studio that didn't really have a whole lot of games under our belt, so we had to kind of approach studios who maybe didn't have as big of a following and work our way up to the big guys, like Shovel Knight, for example, is probably one of the bigger names in there. But also, I really enjoy that we are able to kind of broadcast some of these lesser-known indie games that are quality games. I'm not sure there's necessarily a reason why they're lesser known other than there's just so many indie games out there, right?
Yeah.
So
true.
I really enjoy the fact that we can kind of give a platform to lesser known indies as well, not just with the fighters and stages, but trophies as well. All the trophies in our game, I don't know if you even had an opportunity to see this, but there's a gashapon where you can unlock a whole slew of trophies that are based off characters from other indie games that aren't represented on the roster. We've got descriptions of where they're from, the game name, where they're from, but also you press the Y button and there is actually a direct link. It'll take you directly to their storefront.
See, that's cool. Yeah. I like that. That's actually really cool.
Yeah. Whether or not that's Steam, whatever mobile platform. So we don't just focus on console or PC games. It's basically anything that's indie. We have a couple Game Jam games that we show off as trophies, So yeah, it's basically we have a mix of the lesser known characters, but obviously it's important for us to have the bigger names.
So let me ask you this then, how do those conversations usually play out? I know we talked a little bit about it when I saw you guys at the event and stuff, but again, I don't remember all the conversation we had because there was a lot of stuff happening that day. But, since you mentioned, obviously, characters, appearing as playable fighters in the game, and then also now the trophy stuff, lesser known characters or any sort of characters getting some sort of rep in IndiePogo. I mean, how do those conversations usually happen? I know you guys at one point told me about Yacht Club at one point when you guys went to go talk with them or at least, have some sort of discussion about Shovel Knight.
Yeah, I mean, that one was more in person, basically going to a convention and kind of meeting some of their team in person and having a brief conversation that leads into an email conversation, which leads to agreements, right? But in general, what we will do is, because I do have the pixel art skills, I'll just make a sprite of their character in our art style for any game. And I've obviously got quite a few that a lot of people haven't seen if there's a couple either someone, says no, they politely decline or never, maybe the message gets lost.
That was going to be my next question. It was like, without naming names, was there any of them that probably you had conversations about that just didn't pan out?
Yeah, there've been, I would say probably about 5 or 6. It's honestly not that many. And then obviously I've got some stashed away that I've made where I'm super excited about, but I don't think we're necessarily ready to contact them, right? So I've got a whole slew of sprites that most people haven't seen. But anyway, so what I'll do is I'll take those sprites and I'll just say, hey, this is your character in our art style, especially if it's going to be a trophy. That's super helpful because that's basically the end product, barring that they don't have some feedback for me. But basically just saying, hey, this is how we're hoping to portray your character. What are your thoughts on that? Would you be cool if we continue this conversation? And I think that helps a lot because they get to see the actual example of, oh, okay, this visually looks cool to me, rather than having to imagine, I think this could look cool. It takes away a big question that needs to be answered when approaching these different studios. Yeah, exactly. And especially for some of the bigger names, we've actually made smaller prototypes with those studios' permission, obviously. Smaller prototypes of a specific character with a couple different moves in our game so they can kind of see, this is a piece of what it could look like in action, you know. And luckily, I haven't had to throw away a whole lot of those prototypes. You know, most of those have panned out. We're actually currently working on one more that I can't talk about. Yeah, but just I think showing does a lot better than just telling, and so that's a big part of my process when it comes to trying to work these deals out. And every studio is different. Everyone's looking for something different. Some studios would like to be featured prominently in our marketing advertising because it's a good opportunity for them. Others maybe not so much. You know, it really just depends on a studio to studio basis. And I think that's part of the reason what makes this game somewhat special is just because we like to get intimate with every property here. I actually play every game that we've, especially for the roster, you know.
Which is good.
Yeah, every game, because I want to have a full 100% understanding of the original property that they're coming from, so we know how to translate them as best as possible. And that's obviously a very important goal for us as well. I'm sorry, what was that?
I was saying make sure it's authentic.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I beat almost all the games. There have been very few games that I've been unable to beat that we are showing off in IndiePogo. So, yeah, cool. Just trying to give them the best representation we can.
There's a lot of collaborative efforts going. It's all around, not just with the game itself, but just, again, it seems like in every facet of the game's creation, which is very cool. It sounds very awesome. Trevor, thank you so much for chatting up with me on this episode. It's very cool. Your game is out now. It's on Steam, correct? And then you guys are talking about other platforms at some point?
Yeah, IndiePogo on Steam. We're pretty easy to find on there. And also, it's Lowe Bros on Twitter. And yes, we will be pursuing console ports. I just don't have anything to announce at this time.
Cool. So definitely check out that when you guys get a chance. There'll be links in the description box below to go directly to the game's page, so you guys could check it out, maybe pick it up for yourselves, and let us know, and let Trevor know if you guys enjoy it or whatnot. But thank you again, Trevor, for chatting up with me. Guys, let me know your comments and your thoughts in the comment section down below. Tell me if you guys enjoyed this episode, as well as also any other thoughts and suggestions that you guys want to see on the show here. We're going to talk a little bit more on EX mode for the Patreon peeps, just for a little bit longer, but you guys should definitely check it out when you guys can. For the $1 level or higher over on my Patreon page, you guys are going to get even more exclusive content from us over here. But regardless, though, we will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.